welcome to another briefing. So today I'm going to start out with the satellite image as I typically do, and we are going to discuss the basic pattern that we have right now, particularly over the West Coast. I tend to focus on the Bay Area where I'm based. So we're going to go ahead and pull up my tools here so I can show you what's going on. So we have the flow, the general jet stream flow doing something like this. And what this is basically indicating is we're on the back end of a trough. So you have a lot of cold air coming down from the north. We just had a weather system pass to our south that is now over the Arizona, New Mexico region. You can see that right over here in this area of clouds. A lot of rain and snow pushing through the desert southwest right now. And on the back end of that, we have colder, drier air spilling in from the north, and that's going to bring us some pretty chilly nights as we have that colder air mass kind of starting to establish itself a bit. And we will have slow warming over the next few days, and I'll go ahead and show that in the computer model guidance. But I wanted to start out by showing the National Blend of Models projection for minimum temperatures for tomorrow morning. And what we're noticing here is some really low projections, so potential for some really cold temperatures. Standing out here for me is this 29 in Santa Rosa, and of course surrounding valley areas could get even further down into the 20s is what I'm thinking. You have 33 in Novato, that's Petaluma, 37 Novato. These are just model projections. Take it with a grain of salt. This likely isn't exactly what's going to play out, just a rough estimate. You have upper 30s to around 40 right by the water, 41 for Half Moon Bay, down to about 30 in the San Jose area, depending on how close to the water you are. The closer to the water, it would be a little milder, because that water takes a longer time to cool off than the air surrounding it. Monterey looking at 35. That's pretty cold for Monterey. 27 in the Hollister area, I believe. 32 for Salinas. Pretty cold there. So bundle up tonight in the Bay Area. Saturday morning looking pretty cold as well. Could even be a little colder for some spots. Looking at 39 Half Moon Bay, SFO even. Widespread 30s for even the East Bay shoreline here. That's pretty impressive. Right by the water, you're not dipping below 40. And I mean, take it with a grain of salt, not a guarantee, but that's a pretty cold air mass. That's a lot of cooling overnight that we're seeing here. And then we start to see moderate the overnight lows quite a bit, but staying pretty cold into next week. Plenty of radiational cooling. We might actually have a return of the Thule fog, because if we take a look at high temperatures for tomorrow, for instance, we're seeing the National Blend of Models kind of want to bring some of that cold air from the Central Valley where the highs are staying in the 40s. That's likely because of potential fog. The model thinks that there might be valley fog in this area. And if that does verify, which take it with a grain of salt, it's one model, that would spill some of that cold air into the Bay Area, especially because we might have some wind flow out of the northeast. And if that happens, we would have colder highs in the Bay Area for at least certain parts as well. And then you go through Saturday, Sunday. It's that kind of signature where you have areas that are exposed to the delta gap here, where that cold air funnels in and the fog funnels in from the Central Valley. You would have colder temperatures, but if you're further away from that, you warm up a little more. Half Moon Bay is shadowed from that northeast flow, so they would warm up to about 60, 64 for Monterey. So it just kind of depends on where you are and if that fog develops and where it persists and what kind of wind you get. So then it kind of might even mix out for the Central Valley by next week. And pretty warm temperatures. I mean, some areas around 70 degrees potentially as we go into next week. So quite a warm week ahead. I'm going to explain why it's going to be so warm and dry. So we have this big blocking pattern. So this is the European model. And if you take a look, we have upper level winds at 30,000 feet on the right side. And we have the um, thickness of the column, which is, to put it in simple terms, it's basically where the warmer air columns and where the colder air columns are. So you have these red lines and you have the blue lines. That's what that indicates. And you also have where the precipitation is on this map. So it kind of gives you an idea of the general pattern, but you get to see where the precipitation is going. Whereas on the right side, you're looking at just the winds. So if we put this into motion here, you can see as we go today into tomorrow, there's that back end of the trough I was showing on satellite right here. And there's that cold air coming down from the north. You can technically see it on this projection too, because those blue thickness lines, those colder air columns, are coming down. And so, sorry about that. And then we go through and we start to warm up because we start to build this big ridge, which is essentially a blocking pattern. And I'm going to explain this. So you see here, the jet stream is basically like the storm track. The storms tend to follow along the jet stream, and the jet stream, if you look at the wind map, it's doing something like this. There's a trough way out over the Pacific, and then there's a big ridge over much of the western United States. Still some troughing into the Pacific Northwest, Seattle and Portland, kind of a little bit in that storm track. But big time dry for southern Oregon and California and most of the Intermountain West. And you're seeing that precipitation pattern, the storms here, as I mentioned, it's following that jet stream. It's doing exactly what the jet is doing. See this rain, these areas of rain, they follow this jet. So this storm from the Pacific here, if we had more of a straight west to east flow, it would come straight into the Bay Area, but that's not what we have. We have this blocking pattern. So if I put this into motion, you'll notice that push to the north because of that big ridge. It gets deflected to the north, and unfortunately, it's looking like this pattern is going to stay around for a while, and it's of course not what you'd like to see this time of year. In the middle of the winter, you don't really love seeing more than 7 to 10 days without rain. However, we did get a really good amount of rain over Christmas and New Year's, so a lot of areas will still be at or slightly above average even if we don't get any more rain this month, but we certainly hope to start getting rain again by the end of the month. And I mean, we're not seeing a lot of chances of that so far. Maybe a little system over the Intermountain West on the 22nd, but that would be pretty far east. It would be around here. We'll just cut down here, and this ridge would stay in control here. So, yeah, I mean, the models aren't looking very great. But, let's hope we can get something. And, you should always do your due diligence and look at different computer models. So I do look at the GFS as well and Canadian, but they all basically show the same kind of pattern with that big blocking over the west coast. Canadian actually doesn't go out that far, but if I put this, you can see the Canadian, and it's pretty similar right there. So yeah, unfortunately, it's that kind of pattern. You can also look at ensembles, which is you take 50 different members tweaked for different conditions of the atmosphere to initial conditions, and then you average them out. And you're looking at the height pattern for warmer air, colder air. This is also kind of showing you where the jet stream is. And it's that same kind of blocking pattern. The jet is doing something like this. You have this big ridge out here. And this is usually better to look further out because you're more of a an average forecast of all these ensembles is what you're getting rather than one deterministic run. So if you go far out for the 12Z, what we had here, I mean, this ensemble, it wants to hint at maybe something. It could maybe push a little further west around the 22nd, but that's 15 days out, and that's just a little signal on the ensemble. It doesn't even look very strong at this point. So we'll have to watch that, but it is maybe a little bit of hope for now. Anyways, that's all I have. Sorry about that noise again. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were able to get something out of it, and I'll see you next time.